Hello, I am Jan from Prague, the Czech Republic, and today we are taking a closer look at the Honor 400, a mid-range phone with a 200 megapixel sensor. So far, I've mostly tested Honor's flagship models, and I was curious to see how a more affordable device performs in photography. As always, I've got around 200 test photos from many places across Prague, from the cafe markets to the misty banks of the Vltava River. Let's check it out. As always, I suggest we start with an overview of the technical specifications. We have two lenses, two sensors here. That is the most important one, the main one. It has 27mm and 200 megapixels. And of course, that would be the key tool for many different types of photography. So you'll be using it on 27mm, but since there is no telephoto lens, very often you'll be zooming. And in a couple of minutes, I'll show you many more details. I'll show you many more examples, including a test of zoom. So just wait a bit. This is just an introduction and a first batch of photos, which should give you some idea of what to expect. So coffee and of course Prague, my city where all my testing is happening. A duck and a quite interesting sequence. It was really very foggy weather. In December we had a lot of fog, so I wasn't able to see the Prague castle, but at least I got these interesting birds flying over me. And finally, I got a bit of light, so I was able to take some very complex and complicated shots. We'll see many more of them. And then we have the second lens, the second sensor, which is ultra wide. And of course, by definition, it will serve for shots like you can see here, where we really need to squeeze a lot of space into one frame. Of course, sometimes it might look a little bit strange like here, but once you decide that is the part of the game, you'll really be happy that you have that lens. So certainly this is one of the positive sides of that mobile phone, that you have the really quite capable ultra wide, and you can count on it in many different situations, like here and or here, where parks, trees, a lot of colors and a lot of space to be squeezed into the frame. By the way, the ultra wide lens and sensor are used for something which Honor calls super macro, which obviously is the macro mode. You should definitely try it. It's worth trying because it can really give you some interesting shots, but of course do not expect any miracles. You can get really quite good results, so you should definitely not forget to test this. What is really important to test is the zoom, and we already know that there is no dedicated telephoto lens, so every zooming would be done from the main lens, from the main sensor. So we can go up to 30, which is here, and surprisingly enough, the quality of the photos is quite good. You can see this, and by the way, if you see that recording of the screen, suddenly, just a second perhaps after I took the shot, it gets sharpened by the AI engine inside of the camera. It's quite interesting, and well, in this case, it really looks nice. One more example of the zoom. I always test mobile phones here on that spot. So I took it here, so this would be the ultra wide, and we are going up to the 30, and yes, it's still sort of decent result, but you can see that the AI didn't really get the shape of the windows properly, but still it's quite impressive result. But you have to know that there are some limits of the zooming, of course. Important note, there are three styles: vibrant, natural and authentic. And you should probably know that the authentic is really very different. Here are the examples. This is the vibrant, this is the natural. In theory, the natural should be somehow less vibrant, less saturated than the basic one. Well, I can't really see much of the difference, but be very careful with authentic because it visibly adds vignette to the shots, and if you just forget it, it might actually ruin some of your photos. Of course, there are many modes, many different options, one of which is night mode. Again, it's not surprising at all, but it's probably interesting to point out how it works. Typically, you'll get pretty good result even without turning it on, but sometimes it's really worth doing it, because if I turn it on, you see that it actually gets much more data. I'm really quite far away from the tower, but still, if I zoom to the corner of the shot, the level of details is just amazing. One more example, Old Town Square, and the same principle again. You do not have to turn it on. Most of the shots in this video was actually taken without the mode night, but still, sometimes it can really help. One more quick tip. Do try white balance setting. Why? Because as you can see from these examples, it can really help you a lot. What does this do? It, as the name suggests, changes the color of the light. And in the situation like here, when you have a lot of yellow, it can dramatically help your photos. Look at this. I'm not saying it's bad, but if I turn the yellow color down a little bit, it can dramatically help the shot. So do not forget, you have a lot of options under Pro mode. One more tip for the Pro mode is something which is called panning, and it's very easy if you know how it works. Basically, you need to set the shutter speed to something like 1/30th of a second, and then if you follow the car, then the car or the tram are sharp, are in focus, whereas the rest of the shot is blurred, like here. It's really worth experimenting with this. One more experiment. You know that the mobile phone has 200 megapixels on the main sensor. And if you want, sometimes you're able to use the full resolution to ask the mobile phone to produce a shot which has really 200 megapixels. So this shot has 200 megapixels, and if I crop it, you can see that the level of details is just amazing. Whereas when you'll be using 12 megapixels, still there are details there, but clearly the 200 megapixels gives you control over what you have in the shot and gives you, well, logically, many more details. And now I suggest we go to the streets of Prague for a walk, and I'll show you about 200 test photos. And it's interesting to start here in the heart of the old city of Prague. And I was lucky because there was a lot of lights, a lot of fog, a lot of people. So the results were quite impressive. And this is certainly one of the very positive sides of that mobile phone, that you can count the results of night photography would be nice. And you can clearly see the fog actually was helping the shots. And it's a trick which is being used by photographers and painters for centuries, really, that the fog helps you to create the feeling of not only atmosphere, but also the feeling of space. So I was quite happy, quite lucky, and here are the results. Ultra wide, Old Town Square, and a lot of interesting shots. And I am going really in a big speed, big pace, and I have to apologize because sometimes you are writing to me, asking me, why are you so quick? We want to have more time to study what's in the pictures, but I really have to apologize because I really think it's worth when I go in a huge speed, because my aim is to give you a chance to see as many shots as you can within the limited time frame we have. Because what really matters, it's not that you see how beautiful my city is, which of course is important as well, but that you have a chance to see a lot of examples and got an idea what this mobile phone can deliver to you. Normally I would show you some photos of Prague Castle, but it was hidden by the fog, so at least I took several shots of these amazing birds, and if you are lucky, you quite often can get really nice collections of birds flying over the Charles Bridge, and shots like that can be quite refreshing sometimes. And more evening shots, more fog, more December atmosphere of Prague. Again, you've seen these shots many times. I love coming here because it gives me not only the chance to take some nice shots, but it also to compare different mobile phones. The yellow is really yellow and blue is blue, and the atmosphere is there. By the way, all these shots were taken in HDR, which is quite important to note, because not only that the mobile phone is capable of taking these shots where the bright colors are really shining and the sky is really full of colors and lights. I was using the phone in the HDR mode, which you should do as well, but I was editing this video in HDR, so it's great that you can see exactly what I've seen in my mobile phone. So you can really get a very good idea what is happening and what to expect if you decide to buy this phone. Of course, this is very tricky for any camera, for any mobile phone, because there is a lot of light, a lot of shadows, a lot of people. I'm zooming. So yes, I have to say I was surprised that the results were actually better than I thought they would be, given the fact that this is certainly not flagship. This is certainly not an expensive mobile phone. If you are a photographer, you know that that sort of shots can be really very tricky. Some more amazing light, some more amazing shadows in the downtown Prague, and one more favorite place of mine, which is this garden with peacocks. And I hope if you've seen some of my previous reviews, I presume you might be a little bit bored by the peacocks, but yes, it's great to see them again, and it's great to have a chance to take some shots. Again, do not forget all these shots were zoomed, and since we do not have any dedicated telephoto lens, all these shots are digital zoom, and it's not bad at all, I have to say. Some more fog, some more ducks, and some more close-ups. And finally, we got a bit of sunshine again, which might be rather rare in Prague in December. But we're lucky, so I can show you again some interesting shots from my favorite gardens. And yes, indeed, Charles Bridge from a famous view from the Vltava riverbank, and some colors we already seen during zoom testing. Coffee, detail, and some more shots. And we can close that review by these photos, and you know that we count on the 200 megapixel sensor that it will deliver a reasonable results even if we zoom, which it does. And if you decide to buy that mobile phone, be assured that decent zooming just will produce decent results. And one more example and final scene of that review. Look at this. This is from a really big distance. I was zooming and I was really afraid that it just will not be good. But of course, I probably would not be able to print a huge photo of that and put it on my wall, no. But for a normal photography, for travel photography, for sharing on Instagram, you'll get pretty good results. So thank you so much for your attention. I hope you got a bit of inspiration. Take care. I am Jan from Prague, the Czech Republic.